40. Annabeth. Annabeth woke staring at the shadows dancing across the hut ceiling. She hadn't had a single dream. That was so unusual. She wasn't sure if she had actually woken up. As she lay there, Percy snoring next to her and small Bob purring on her belly. She heard Bob and Damison deep in conversation. You haven't told her? No, Damison said. No, Bob admitted. She was already scared. The giant grumbled. She should be, and if you cannot guide them past night. Damison said night, like it was a proper name, an evil name. I have to, Bob said. Why? Damison wondered. Why have the gods? What have the gods given you? What have the demigods given you? They raised you also, and everything you were. Titans and giants. We are meant to be the foes of the gods and their children. Are we not? Then why did you heal the boy? Damison exhaled. I have been wondering that myself. Perhaps the girl goaded me, or perhaps I find these two demigods intriguing. They are resilient to have made it so far. That is admirable. So how can we help them any further? It is not our fate. Perhaps, Bob said unfortunately. Would you like our fate? How much do you remember? She asked. Percy frowned. His eyes seemed alert. All his wounds had vanished except for his tattered clothes and a few layers of dirt and grime. And he looked as if he'd never fallen into Tartarus. I did a good grandmother, and then not much. Damison loomed over the bed. There is no time, little waters. The Draken is returning. I fear its roar will draw the others. My breath and haunt you, and he will be here. They will be here within minutes. Annabeth's pulse quickened. What will you tell them when they get here? Damison's mouth twitched. What is there to tell? Nothing. Or significance. As long as you two are gone. He tossed them two Draken leather skaters, clothes, food, drink. Bob was wearing a similar but larger pack. He leaned on words. What have demigods given you? What are meant to be the foes of the gods and their children? Suddenly Annabeth was struck by a thought so sharp and clear it was like a blade from Athena herself. The prophecy of 70, he said. Percy had already climbed out of bed and was shouldering his pack. He frowned at her. What about it? Annabeth grabbed Damison's hand, startling the giant. His brow furrowed. His skin was rough as sandstorm. You have to come with us, she pleaded. The prophecy says, foes bear arms to the doors of death. I thought it meant Roman Greeks, but that's not it. The line means us. Demigods, a titan, a giant. We need you to close the doors. The Draken roared outside. Closer this time. Damison gently pulled his hands away. No, child, he murmured. My curse is here. I cannot escape it. Yes, you can, Annabeth said. Don't fight the Draken. Figure out a way to break the cycle. Find another fate. Damison shook his head. Even if I could, I cannot leave this swamp. It is my only destination I can picture. Annabeth's mind raced. There is another destiny. Look at me. Remember my face when you're ready. Come and find me. We'll take you to the mortal world with us. You can see the sunlight and stars. The ground shook. The Draken was close now, stomping through the marsh, blasting trees and moss with its poison spray. Further away, Annabeth heard the voice of the giant Polyboat, urging his followers forward. The sea god's son! He is close. Annabeth, Percy said urgently, that's our cue to leave. The Amazon took something from his belt. In his massive hand, the white shard looked like another toothpick. But when he offered it to Annabeth, she realized it was a sword, a blade of dragon bone, honored on her own to a deadly eagle with a simple grip of leather. One last gift for the child of Athena, rumbled the giant. I cannot have you walk into your death unharmed. Now go, before it is too late. Annabeth wanted to sob. She took the sword, but she couldn't even make herself say thank you. She knew the giant was meant to fight at her side. That was the answer, but Damison turned away. We must leave, Bob urged as his kitten climbed onto his shoulder. He's right, Annabeth, what he said. They ran for the entrance. Annabeth didn't look back as she followed Percy and Bob into the swamp. But she heard Damison behind them shouting his battle cry at the advancing dragon, his voice cracking with despair as he faced his old enemy yet again. Chapter 41. Piper didn't know much about the Mediterranean, but she was pretty sure it wasn't supposed to freeze in July. 2 days out to sea from split grey clouds swallowed the sky. The waves turned choppy, cold drizzle sprayed across the deck, forming ice on the rails and the ropes. It's a scepter, Nico murmured, hefting the ancient staff. It has to be. I wondered. Ever since Jason and Nico had returned from Diocletian's palace, they'd been acting nervous and cagey. Something major happened to them, something Jason wouldn't share with her. It made sense that the scepter might have caused this weather change. The black orb on top seemed to leash the colour right out of the air. The golden eagle at its base glinted coldly. The scepter could supposedly control the dead, and it definitely gave off bad vibes. Coach had taken one look at the thing, turned pale, and announced that he was going to his room to console himself with Chuck Norris's videos. Although Piper suspected that he was actually making iris messages back home to his girlfriend, Melly. The coach had been acting very agitated about her lately, though he wouldn't tell Piper what was going on. So yes, maybe the scepter could cause a freak ice storm, but Piper didn't think that was it. He feared something else. What was happening? Something even worse? He can't talk up here, Jason decided. Let's postpone the meeting. They all gathered on the quarterdeck to discuss strategy as they got closer to Epirus. That was clearly not a good place to hang out. Wind swept fast across the deck. The sea churned beneath them. Piper didn't mind the waves so much. Rock and pitching reminded her of surfing with her dad on the California coast. But you could tell Hazel wasn't doing well. Poor girl got seasick even in calm waters. She looked like she was trying to swallow a billiard ball. Near to Hazel and pointed below. Yeah, go. And I kissed her cheek, which Piper found surprising. He hardly ever made gestures of affection, even to his sister. He seemed to have physical contact kissing Hazel. It was almost like he was saying goodbye. I'll walk you down. Frank put his arm around Hazel's waist and helped her to the stairs. Piper hoped Hazel would be okay. The last few nights since that fight with Siren, they'd have some good talks together. Being the only two girls on board was kind of rough. They'd shared stories, complained about the guy's gross habits, and shed some tears together about Annabeth. Hazel had told her what it was like to control the mist, and Piper had been surprised how much it sounded like using charm speak. Piper had offered to help her if she could. In return, Hazel had promised to coach her in sword fighting, a skill at which Piper especially sucked. Piper felt like she had a new friend, which was great, assuming they lived long enough to enjoy the friendship. Nigel brushed some ice from his hair. He frowned at the scepter of Diocletian. I should put this thing away. If it really causing bother, maybe taking it below deck will help. Sure, Jason said. Nigel glanced at Piper and Leah as if worried what they might say when he was gone. Piper felt like his defences going up, like he was curling in a pie-solid ball. The way he'd gone into a death trance in that bronze jar. Once he'd headed below. Piper sighted Jason's face. His eyes were full of concern. What had happened in Croatia? He pulled a screwdriver from his belt. So much for the big tea meeting. Looks like it's just us again. Just us again. I remembered a wintry day in Chicago last December when the three of them had landed in Millennium Park on their first quest. Leo hadn't changed much since then, except he seemed more comfortable in his role as a child of Hephaestus. He'd always have too much nerve energy. Now he knew how to use it. His hands were constantly in motion, putting tools from his belt, working controls, tinkering with his beloved Archimedes. Today he'd removed it from the control panel and shut down Festus, the figurehead, for maintenance. Something about rewiring his processor for a motor control upgrade with the sphere, whatever the heck that meant. As for Jason, he looked thinner, taller, and more careworn. His hair had gone from close-cropped Roman style to longer and shaggier. The Rusier had shot across the left side of his scalp, was interesting too, almost like a rebellious streak. His icy blue eyes looked older somehow, full of worry and responsibility. Heather knew what her friends whispered about Jason. He was too perfect, too straight-laced. If that had ever been true, it wasn't anymore. He'd been battered on this journey, and not physically. His hardships hadn't weakened him, but he'd been weathered and softened like leather, as if he were becoming a more comfortable version of himself. And Piper, she could only imagine what Leo and Jason thought when they looked at her. Like they definitely didn't feel like the same person she'd been last winter. Their first quest to rescue Hera seemed like centuries ago. So much had changed in 7 months. She wondered how the gods could withstand being alive for thousands of years. How much change had they seen? Maybe it wasn't surprising that the Olympians seemed a little crazy. If Piper had lived through 3 millennia, which is 3,000, she would have gone loopy. She gazed into the cold rain. She would have given anything to be back at Camp Half-Blood, where the weather was controlled even in the winter. The images she'd seen in her life recently, well, it didn't give her much to look forward to. Jason squeezed her shoulder. Hey, it'll be fine. We're close to Epirus now. Another day or so, if Nico's directions are right. Yep, like Leo tinkered with his sphere, tapping and nudging out one of the jewels on its surface. By tomorrow, we'll reach the western coast of Greece. Then another hour inland, and bang, House of Hades. I'm a get me a t-shirt. I'm a get me the t-shirt. Yay, Piper muttered. She wasn't anxious to plunge into the darkness again. She still had nightmares about Nympharium, and the little high podium under Rome. in the blade of Caltoprittis she'd seen in images of what Leo and Hazel had described from their dreams. A pale sorceress in a gold dress, her hands weaving golden light in the air, like a silk on the loom. A giant wrapped in shadows marching down a long corridor lined with torches. As they passed each other, the flames died. She saw a huge cavern filled with monsters, cyclopses, earthborn and stranger things, surrounding her and her friends, hopelessly outnumbering them. Every time she saw those images, a voice in her head kept repeating one line over and over. "Guys," she said, "I've been thinking about the prophecy of 7. It took a lot to get Leo's attention away from his work, but that did the trick." "What about it?" he asked. "Like good stuff, I hope?" She readjusted her cornucopia shoulder strap. Sometimes the horn of plenty seemed so light she forgot about it. Other times she felt like she forgot about it. Other times it felt like an anvil, as if the river god Achilles was sending out bad thoughts, trying to punish her for taking his horn. In Catoprittis, she started. "I kept seeing that giant in Salitius, the guy who's wrapped in shadows. I know his weakness is fire, but in my vision he snuffs out flames wherever he goes. Any kind of light, he just gets sucked to his clouds of darkness." "Sounds like Nico," Leo said. You think they're related?" Jason scowled. "Hey man, cut Nico some slack, so Piper. What about this giant? What are you thinking?" He and Leo exchanged a quizzical look like, since when does Jason defend Nico the Anglo? She decided not to comment. "I kept thinking about fire," Piper said. "How we expect Leo to beat this giant because he's hot?" Leo suggested with a grin. Let's go with flammable. Anyway, a line from prophecy bothers me. To storm or fire, the world must fall. "Yeah, we know all about it," Leo promised. "You're going to say I'm fire and Leo and Jason here is the storm." Piper nodded recutantly. He knew none of them liked talking about this, but they all must have felt it was the truth. The ship pitched to the starboard. Jason grabbed the icy railing. "So you're worried one of us will endanger the quest, maybe accidentally destroy the world?" "No," Piper said. "I think we've been reading that line the wrong way. The world, the earth. In Greek, the word for that would be..." He hesitated, not wanting to say without, "even at the sea?" "Gaia." Jason's eyes gleamed with sudden interest. "You meant to storm or fire, Gaia must fall." "Oh!" Leo grinned even wider. "You know, I like the version a lot better, because if Gaia falls to me, might miss the fire that is absolutely compact. Or to me, storm." Jason kissed her. "Piper, that's brilliant if you're right. This is great. You just have to figure out which of us destroys Gaia." Maybe he felt uneasy getting their hopes up, but let's see. It's storm or fire. She unsheathed the Catoprittis pits and set it on the console. Immediately the blade flickered, showing the darker shape of the giant Cyclops moving through a corridor, snuffling out the torches. "I'm worried that Leo and this fight with Cyclops," she said. "That line of the prophecy makes it sound like only one of you can succeed, and if the storm or fire part is connected to the third line, an oath to keep your final breath." She didn't finish the thought, but from Jason's and Leo's fishing, she saw that they understood. If she was reading the prophecy right, either Leo or Jason would defeat Gaia, and the other one would die.